The Canadian government has misled pregnant and breastfeeding women about the safety of their prized COVID injections. I'm Drea Humphrey with Rebel News. Let's talk about it.
The vaccine clinical trials didn't include pregnant women, certainly these initial clinical trials. But there's no biological reason why the vaccine wouldn't be effective and safe during pregnancy.
Safe and effective. That was the phrase public health lords used to convince and coerce pregnant and breastfeeding women into believing that they could take the experimental COVID-19 injections without posing any risk to themselves or their babies. In fact, even today, here in black and white, the federal government still promises that mRNA COVID-19 vaccines and boosters at any stage of pregnancy are safe and effective. But is that true? And where on earth are they getting such information from? Recently, I received a video put together by a group of concerned medical professionals who prefer to remain anonymous. The video includes evidence revealed through Freedom of Information and Inquiry of Ministry documents that show a damning contrast between what Health Canada, the British Columbian Centre for Disease Control, and public health officials across the country told some of society's most precious and vulnerable are pregnant and nursing women. The documents appear to prove that what such women were told wasn't based on science, ethics, nor the truth. While some of the documents had many redactions, Lee Turner, a BC attorney with Doak Sheriff Lawyers, joins me now to help unpack some of the key concerns found within the documents.
There is a copy of the government contract between Pfizer and the Government of Canada when the vaccines were purchased. And as you say, it's very heavily redacted, but for those sections that are not redacted, it does make it plain that the manufacturers were disclaiming any warranties for merchantability or fitness for purpose. So in other words, they're disclaiming any warranty that they were fit for distribution to the public or that they would accomplish what they were set out to do. The Government of Canada also specifically acknowledges that they understand there may be severe harms from the product that are not yet known at the time of purchase. So that's a little bit concerning, but that is clearly specified in the contract. What also is clear from the video that I've reviewed is that, and the information in it, which I'm familiar with, is that the Federal Minister of Health issued an order paper question response on December 13th, 2023. And in that written document, Health Canada, or the Government of Canada, the Minister of Health, specifically confirms that, and I just want to make sure I read this properly, but his exact words were, as indicated in the specific product monographs, which is from the manufacturers of the product, it is noted that the safety and efficacy of these vaccines in pregnant women have not yet been established. And he also says no indication for use in pregnant or lactating women was sought by the vaccine sponsors or approved or authorized by Health Canada. So that statement seems to contradict what we've heard from many public health officials on television and in other public statements, that there's good data, good safety data, that they have, that it's been authorized by Health Canada for pregnant women and lactating women, when the Minister of Health seems to be saying the opposite is true. In that same order paper question 2163, the Minister also stated Health Canada has not approved any safety claims with regard to pregnant and lactating women. So again, that seems to be at odds with what public health officials have been stating on television and otherwise in their briefings. So that's concerning. And when one looks at the actual product monographs, even the original set of product monographs, they contain these same cautions that they have no safety data for pregnant or lactating women. They admit in their monographs that they can't exclude that the vaccines will get into the babies through breast milk, and that there's been they don't have any good data on whether it will harm fertility either. So again, those statements come right from the manufacturers in their product monographs, which the federal minister is emphasizing is important for us to look at, to be aware of what the product monographs say. And so, yeah, it's troubling that there's such a contradiction.
No established COVID jab safety and efficacy for pregnant women. No approval from Health Canada when it comes to pregnant and lactating women? That is quite the opposite of what we, the people, were told, even after little mercy was shown to expecting and new moms who were punished by tyrannical vaccine policies for rightfully questioning the public health's COVID jab narrative.
COVID happened, and in the middle of me being on maternity leave with my first daughter, vaccine mandates came down the pipe, and the provincial government, my employer, made it mandatory that I had to be vaccinated in order to return to work. And at the time, I was breastfeeding my first daughter, and we were also expecting our second as well. So wow. I wasn't willing to put my own health and safety, as well as my unborn daughter's life and safety, and my newborn with getting the vaccine. So I turned it down, unfortunately, and it cost me my job.
It's sick, isn't it? In addition to the manufactured documents clearly stating that there was no established safety data for pregnant and lactating women, and that they can't rule out the possibility that Big Pharma's mRNA spike protein concoction won't leak into the newborn system through their mother's breast milk. They also show that the jab manufacturers had no quality data to assure that the rush COVID jabs wouldn't negatively impact fertility. But that truth didn't stop public health officers like BC's Dr. Bonnie Henry from telling her pregnant human guinea pigs the following.
Unequivocally, these vaccines do not affect fertility, both in women or in boys or in young men. They do not affect fertility. There's no way that they can do that.
Now, unlike state choice media that subjectively drank up every last drop of Kool-Aid public health was serving about these jabs, this isn't Rebel News' first report uncovering underreported facts about COVID jabs' risk to pregnant and lactating women. We've even brought you interviews with highly credentialed scientists, including UBC's Dr. Stephen Pellick, where many of the flaws involved in the little testing we do know Pfizer has done has been discussed about their pregnant rats.
The issue with the testing of the rats and mice for the effects of the vaccine, especially in pregnant rats, is that rats, they don't have the receptors for the spike protein that's actually produced by the vaccine. So while you can elicit an immune response in the rats, you can't tell what the effect of the spike protein is in the rats. In fact, in the original testing, they should have been doing 2 animal models, and they only did it in the rats. You normally do a rodent model in perhaps chimpanzees or some other species that's more related to humans. So this was a deficiency of the study. Again, only about 10% of the testing was actually done that would normally be done for the approval of the, in this case, the Pfizer RNA vaccine. And so I guess the issue here is that in most studies, we don't actually even test it on pregnant women because we err on the side of caution. So this was not done actually in any clinical trial with pregnant women.
Oh, pregnant women were tested, all right. And in many ways, they still are being tested, except not by an ethical controlled setting where outcomes were monitored. No, instead, their fate is buried amongst the general publics after a mass push to try and ensure there's no remaining control group at all. You know, the unvaccinated. But still, more and more apparent lies about what pregnant and lactating women were told from their big pharma and public health drug pushers are coming to the surface, and not just in Canada. Take a look at what Kansas City's Attorney General Chris Kobach recently stated when he announced that Kansas and 4 other states are now suing Pfizer for misleading statements made about the properties of their so-called safe and effective COVID jabs.
Pfizer marketed its vaccine as safe for pregnant women. However, in February of 2021, Pfizer possessed reports for 458 pregnant women who received Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine during pregnancy. More than half of the pregnant women reported an adverse event, and more than 10% reported a miscarriage, many within days of the vaccination. Pfizer also possessed information from its own October 2020 study on pregnancy in rats, indicating that its COVID-19 vaccine was likely linked to infertility, loss of litters, and stillborn offspring.
So what to do? And how do the people seek justice? In addition to including the full video, which I've discussed in this report, and the documents within it, and some other helpful resources in the written article for this report, which you can find in the description box below, and which I encourage you to read and share so the public can be informed, I leave you with some advice from Lee Turner about how citizens can fight back.
If you feel like you've been misled or the information's been misrepresented to you, and the person who made that misrepresentation is a member of a professional college, a registrant of a professional college, they could consider filing a complaint with the college. All of the college's websites have typically on their opening page the instructions on how a complaint must be filed. That's one option. You could consider, if you've been harmed, you could consider making a claim against the vaccine injury program that the Canadian government set up in June of 2021. That program paid out, I believe it's $2.8 million in the first year and a half to the end of 2022, and then they paid out another, if I have it right, $8.4 million in 2023 for vaccine injuries. And the federal government in their budget this year in 2024 has budgeted another $36 million for vaccine injury claims over the next 2 years. So there's that program. They could also consider seeking a legal opinion as to whether or not they have a civil action for damages, and speak to their own physician about what's been happening as a result of any harms caused, try to get proper treatment. There are a number of good resources out there for people to check. A couple of them would be the Canadian Citizens Care Alliance website or Mama Bear, and there's many others where there's good resource and help information for people that have been hurt.
Drea Humphrey for Rebel News. At Rebel News, we've been bringing you the other side of the state's COVID-19 story since January 2020, but none of that was or will continue to be possible without your help. If you believe that the people deserve to know the truth about COVID injections and that they should be pulled off the market, at least until they do, go to nomoreshots.ca, sign our petition there, and donate what you can to help make more reports like this possible.